Hola, buenas tardes. Good afternoon. This is Abelardo de la Peña Jr. I'm the Director of Marketing and Communications with La Plaza de Cultura y Artes, welcoming you to today's En Casa con la Plaza Cocina. First of all, let me tell you, Happy New Year, all of you. Feliz Año Nuevo, 2022. You know, we're in a new year and hopefully a better year. And we start off strong today with one of our favorites, Eliceo Lara. But before we get started on that, let me give you some updates on La Plaza de Cultura y Artes. As you know, we've been open since about June, July of last year. We're closed today, closed tomorrow. We're recalibrating, basically looking at what the situation here is with Los Angeles as far as the coronavirus and the new variant. But we will keep you updated on our museum opening as we go throughout the week, months and weeks and months to come. So for now, expect us to be open this week. If not, we will be sure to let you know via social media and other means. But that doesn't mean En Casa con la Plaza is stopping. We're continuing on and we're here today. We'd like to thank our January En Casa sponsors, CVS Health, Aetna, Union Pacific Foundation, Kaiser Permanente, and of course the California Humanities and the National Endowment for the Humanities, and the Institute of Museum and Library Services for the advancement, support, and empowerment of our museums, libraries, and related organizations. Okay, now with that, I'd like to welcome our host for En Casa con la Plaza Cocina, Jimena Martin. Please join us.
Buenas tardes. Happy New Year's to everybody. I hope everybody's en casa safe. So good to be back, a long time away. But we have a very special guest, Eliceo Lara. He always brings, he's such a pleasure to have, all the way from Mexico City. And today Eliceo will be making a beautiful mousse de Jamaica. And I started working with Jamaica myself, making some Jamaica tacos. I'm really interested to see a sweet version of what we can do with Jamaica besides aguas de Jamaica. Hola, Eliceo, ¿cómo estás?
Hola, hola, muy bien, gracias. ¿Y tú?
I'm good, I'm good. I think the way the camera is right now, it's focusing on your dishes, not on you.
We got it now. We got it
Got
now.
it?
Yes.
Okay, so we're good. Sorry. So we're
Okay.
good.
Okay, perfect.
So I know we've been doing this virtually online. I know you're in Mexico City. How are things going? Are we doing more virtual classes? Have you been doing any in-house classes in person there in Mexico?
I started my first in-person class in almost 2 years. This was, I think, like 2 weeks ago, right before New Year's Eve. And that was great. I was very happy I really miss my in-person classes. But I'm really happy that I've also built a very nice online community. And now I have a very large group of home bakers that bake with me almost every weekend. So I'm very happy about that.
What were some of the things you were baking?
So of course, we did Rosca de Reyes. In the season in October, we did, of course, Pan de Muerto. And then in December, I had many different pastries we made. One of my favorites was Rudolph Conchas, after Rudolph the reindeer. That was a lot of fun. Also, we made, I think, 3 different versions for Rosca de Reyes. One was, like the traditional one. Another one was with a chocolate hazelnut filling and glaze. And then we also made one filled with cream cheese and jam. That was a lot of fun. We made a hibiscus millefeuille, the French cake. In Spanish, it's mil hojas. That was a lot of fun.
Bueno, pues qué rico. Ahora podemos hacer otras cosas más ricas también aquí con nosotros, with our folks who are watching us. So please walk us through a little bit how to make the mousse de Jamaica.
Yes, so today we are going to be making a mousse. I was just talking with Abelardo a little bit earlier about what a mousse is. Mousse is a French word that means foam. It sounds a little intimidating because it sounds like a very fancy word, but it's just a fancy word that means that we're going to incorporate some air into something. There are two different ways to make mousse. The one that we're gonna make today, I think it's the most popular. We're gonna start by making an egg cream. And then when that has cooled down, we're gonna incorporate some heavy cream into it. And that's how we're gonna incorporate some air in there. Usually a mousse has a lot of air, it's very light. So we're gonna start with a crunchy texture. We're gonna start with a streusel. This streusel, I'm gonna start with some cornflakes. I got the inspiration for this recipe from Cristina Tosi, the baker from the Milk Bar. She plays a lot with these different textures, and I like the way she thinks about baked goods, because she takes, like American comfort food and then uses traditional French techniques. And it's kind of what we are gonna be doing today. So we're gonna start with cornflakes. We're gonna turn that into a streusel. And then we're gonna take Jamaica, the hibiscus flower. That's a very common ingredient in Latin American food. And we're gonna turn that into a mousse. So should we get started?
Yes, please.
Perfect. So I'm gonna be starting with the streusel. The streusel, I'm going to tell you the ingredients. It's going to be 85 grams or 2 cups and 1/3 of a cup of cornflake cereal. Then we're gonna be using also 20 grams or 2 tablespoons of milk powder. The milk powder can be substituted for all-purpose flour, but I find that the milk powder complements really well the flavor for the cornflakes. It reminds you of having cornflakes in the morning. And then we're also going to be using just 1 tablespoon of sugar, that's 15 grams, a large pinch of salt, and also we're going to be using 65 grams or 1/3 of a cup of butter. It's better if the butter is cold and in small pieces. So I'm going to get started with the cornflakes. I have here this is just your regular cornflakes. And I'm gonna be using my hands just to make them a bit smaller. We're gonna be creating little clumps with this. So I want them to be a little bit smaller and not as large as they come. It just takes a few seconds. And that's it. This one, of course, can be used for many different things, not only for this mousse. It's going to give us a lot of texture, but it can also be used, let's say, on top of a cake, like a birthday cake. That would be a really good idea, or even like a Tres Leches cake. Sometimes I use it for my Tres Leches cakes, and it's really, really good. Complements really well with that milky flavor from the Tres Leches. So I have here my cornflakes. I'm going to be adding my milk powder and my sugar, just a little bit of sugar. Simply going to be mixing this by hand for a few moments. It's a very straightforward process, and it's just one bowl, so you're not using a lot of dishes to make this streusel. That's it. And now I'm going to be adding my butter. As I said before, it's better if it's nice and cold. And I'm gonna start mixing this. I do not want to melt the butter. I just want to make sure that I'm coating all the cornflakes with this butter. But it's important that I am not melting it. So I'm mostly using the tips of my fingers. Oh, I see we have a message from Terry. Hola, Terry. Terry is one of my students from my online classes of my baking group. Hola, hola, Terry. Buenas tardes. So at this point, I just want to make sure that I'm coating all my cornflakes with the butter. And again, just make sure that you're not melting that butter. Otherwise, it might not be incorporated in the final product, but it would be just melted on the bottom of your pan. As I am incorporating this, it starts creating clumps, as you can see.
We have a question real quick, Eliceo. It's from Ana Vasquez. Is it salted or unsalted butter?
Unsalted butter. Usually I think for all my recipes, I use unsalted butter. And that's what I usually recommend whenever you are baking. This way you can control the amount of salt that you're using in your recipe, because different brands of butter have different amounts of salt, of salted butter. So this way, I'm sure that I'm in control of the amount of salt that goes in there. Okay, so that's it. As you can see, everything is coated with that butter.
It almost looks like
And it's-
granola.
What's that, sorry?
Looks like granola.
Yeah, exactly. It's exactly the same texture as granola right now. Okay. So that's all we want from this. I have my oven preheated to 275 Fahrenheit. 275 Fahrenheit. And I'm simply gonna toss this on a baking tray. Usually when this is happening to me, because my paper comes in a roll and then it just wouldn't hold its shape, I just create a bowl out of it. And that should do the trick. There we go. I'm tossing this in here. I'm going to be creating an even layer. And this is going to go in the oven for 20 to 30 minutes, depending on your oven. When you can see it's lightly toasted, that means it is done. So I'm gonna take this to the oven. Now that you mention it, I think you could use granola also to add texture. That would be a great idea as well. Okay, so now we can get started with our mousse. There are two steps to this mousse. First, we're going to make a, in French, it's called crème anglaise. Its translation could be English cream. And that means it's cream, that it's runny. It's not like a pastry cream, but it's runny. And it's an egg-based cream. And then we're gonna let that cool down. And once it has cooled down, we're gonna incorporate heavy cream into this. That's like the standard recipe for a mousse. We're gonna take one step before that, and that means that we're gonna infuse our milk with the hibiscus petals. So, let me give you the ingredients for that. That is, here they are. It's 190 grams whole milk. That is 3/4 cup whole milk. 30 grams or 3/4 cup of Jamaica hibiscus petals. And then later, we're gonna be using a little extra milk. I'm gonna let you know how much when we do that. Then we're also going to be adding 3 tablespoons of granulated sugar that is 36 grams, and also 1 large egg. Okay, so I'm gonna go to my stove top again. So I'm gonna start by warming up my milk. I'm gonna take it to a boil. Once it has boiled, I'm gonna take it off the heat, and I'm going to add my hibiscus petals, my Jamaica. When I do that, it's gonna look like it curdled. That's because it's going to curdle. This happens because of the acidity of the hibiscus petals. If you've had agua de Jamaica before, you've noted that it has a very distinct kind of acidic flavor. So this acidity in the flour is going to make the milk curdle. That's fine, don't worry about that. We're just gonna let that sit for maybe 30 minutes. The milk is gonna separate into the water component of the milk and the milk solids. That's okay, but that liquid is going to be infused with the Jamaica. And from there, we're going to be making our English cream.
So when that separates, sounds like you're almost like making cheese. No?
It's a similar process, yes. Later, we're going to be using all of this in a different way, but it's a similar process because we're going to make it curdle. You would have something similar to buttermilk,
Yeah.
but infused with Jamaica. Okay, I'm just going to wait a few more, maybe like a minute or so. I want a good, nice boiling before I take this off the heat.
So when you're working with Jamaica, because I've only done it like with water, so you're using the Jamaica as is, like straight out of the bag, no rinsing, as is, like a tea, and putting the leaves directly into the milk, yeah?
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of similar to what you would do when you're making agua de Jamaica, but instead of water, I'm using milk. It's kind of the same process. Okay. This is almost boiling.
So Eliseo, so you're saying that once you put in the Jamaica and the milk separates, so eventually when you strain that, are you going to take the curds away from the milk and just stay with the water? I'm just a little confused because since I've done made cheese, like I keep the curds and I use the curds to make the cheese, and then the water I just throw out because I don't have use of it.
Yeah, most of the milk solids are gonna give me a second. My milk is boiling, so I'm going to add my Jamaica now, and just by adding this and mixing, you might be able to see how it's going to curdle. Now, there we go. Okay, sure you can see that.
It's a little dark. There we can see them. We can see the white curds. Yeah.
It's separated now. So I'm gonna let this infuse for, let's say, at least 20 minutes, ideally 30 minutes. And eventually it's going to look like this. I infused this earlier, so we can go a bit quicker.
It's really lovely color. It's a nice color. Yeah. It looks like wine.
Exactly. And you can tell how most of the milk solids are covering my petals, my Jamaica petals. So now I'm gonna strain that, and I'm back to your question. I'm going to be straining this most of the milk solids are going to stay covering the petals, and the liquid, the water in the milk, is what we're going to be using to make our English cream. We are going to use this hibiscus petals. If you replicate this recipe at home, please do not throw these away, because we're going to use this later. You could even use this to make, just like rinse them and make your regular agua de Jamaica. But in this case, I'm going to be candying this. I'm not even going to rinse them. I'm going to be using those milk solids as part of my process.
Yeah. Eliceo, can you be so kind to share again the measurements of the ingredients? Just one more time.
1 second. Just let me get rid of. I want to use all of this nice juice from the infusion. There we go. Okay, and that's it. I'm gonna transfer this to a different cooking pot, because we're gonna use them later. And before we proceed with the rest of the recipe, let me give you the ingredients. Again, so it's 190 grams or 3/4 of a cup of whole milk. Then 30 grams or 3/4 of a cup of Jamaica hibiscus petals. Then we're gonna use a bit more whole milk. I'm gonna let you know the amount in a moment. Also a little bit of sugar, that's gonna be 36 grams or 3 tablespoons of sugar, and also 1 large egg. Okay. So now this is my infused milk. Technically now it's buttermilk because it has curdle. I'm gonna take that, and I am going to use a measuring cup. Because some of it has evaporated, some of it has been absorbed by the Jamaica petals. And I want to make sure that I use the right amount for the next step of the process. So I just used a measuring cup, and I'm going to be using a little extra milk to make sure I have half a cup now. And that's the amount that we're going to be using for the next step. So I'm just making sure I have half a cup. There we go. It's a little bit more. That's it. And that was the extra milk that I was referring to earlier. So I'm gonna pour this in a separate saucepan. And now I'm going to be adding that extra sugar. And also 1 egg. Now, this is properly the step where we will be making an English cream. I'm going to transfer this to the heat. I'm going to be using a medium-low heat. Okay, here we go. Now, whenever you are making a cream that has eggs in there, it's very important that you are using a whisk And with the whisk, make sure you are touching the bottom of the pan at all times, and also the sides of the pan. And you should be whisking at all times. If you don't do that, then there is a very good chance that you will have scrambled eggs instead of a nice cream. So it's very important that you do that at all times. It's a very similar process to when you are making, let's say, a pastry cream. It's a similar process, but the final texture is very different. Pastry cream is way thicker than this, and we're trying to do with this. In this case, I want to have later, it's gonna be kind of runny, a runny texture, but it's very important to know when to stop. So let me show you how it looks right now. So right now, if I do this and I'm stirring and then stop, the cream keeps moving, right? It's too runny, so if I stop, the cream keeps moving. This will be ready once I stop stirring and the cream stops along with my whisk.
That's a great tip. I didn't think about that. It's a really cool tip.
Yeah, that's when you're making an English cream, but also let's say if you're making a lemon curd or something like that, that's a good way to know when your cream is done. And that is also a good sign. That means that your eggs have been pasteurized and are safe to be consumed.
Yeah, because I made lemon curd as well, and it's always a guessing game. I just know not to overcook it, because then it starts tasting eggy.
There you go. So this is a good way to know. It's exactly the same thing when you're making a lemon curd. Mm-hmm. Just once you stop and the cream stops with you, that's good to go. Again, make sure you are stirring all the time. And I can tell this is thickening. Still not ready. It's still moving when I stop whisking, but I can feel this is definitely thickening and it's getting there. Okay, I think it's almost there. Okay, I think just a few more moments and this will be good to go. There we go. It's getting a bit foamy, but I think you can still.
Eliceo, our friend, yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Eliceo, our friend Lola is asking us, have you resumed any in-person classes? Wondering because several people have asked from Mexico City recommendations recently.
Oh, yes. Hola, Lola. Yes, I just resumed my in-person classes like 2 weeks ago. So yes, I'm very excited to be able to host my in-person classes again. And yes, you can refer your friends to my Instagram page or my website, that is mexicanbaking.com. Muchas gracias. Okay, this one is definitely done. Let me see if I can show you. I'm stirring, and then when I stop, the cream stops with my whisk. That's when you know this is good to go.
That's a really cool trick. I'm definitely gonna have to catch that for me.
There we go. And let's say that if you were making a regular English cream, it just wouldn't have this lovely like violet color, but it would be exactly the same process. There we go. Okay. I have my English cream ready to go. This one needs to cool down before I can incorporate my the rest of my ingredients. I'm gonna put this in the fridge for now. I'm going to cover this with plastic wrap, but there's one very important thing whenever you're making, again, a cream that has egg in there. You don't want to cover it like this and then put it in the fridge. You want the plastic wrap to actually be touching the surface of the cream. If you don't do that, then it might develop a skin, and then it wouldn't have that nice soft texture in the mouth. So you want to make sure that the plastic wrap is actually touching all the surface of the cream. There we go. And now this can go into the fridge.
I know we're working with Jamaica today, but a mousse is a delicious mousse. I was wondering, can we do the same technique for, let's say, passion fruit, mango, anything else to be infused with the cream, and then go through the same steps that you did in removing the taste, the Jamaica from the cream?
I think in that case, you can use any recipe that is like, let's say your lemon curd recipe, you can use it. And instead of, let's say, lemon juice, you can use passion fruit juice, you can use orange juice, you can use, mandarin juice is one of my favorites as well. So you can do that. This recipe, I would use it in case you want to infuse it with whatever you want to use. So let's think cinnamon,
Okay.
anything that you want to infuse, then this is your recipe to go. Let me take a look at our crunchy texture. I think it's almost done, just a few more minutes. So the next step of our recipe could be to take the heavy cream to firm picks. So I'm going to do that now. I'm going to be using a stand mixer. This can, of course, be done using a hand mixer. It's just very important that your heavy cream is nice and cold. And also, if you are using a stand mixer like I am doing now, make sure you do not turn this on and then go do something else, because this will go to soft peaks, then it will go to firm peaks, and that's when you want to stop. If you keep whisking after that, then it will separate into butter and buttermilk. So if you wanted butter in the first place, that's great. But if you didn't, there's no turning back from that. You cannot fix it yourself. So especially if you're using a stand mixer, just make sure to keep an eye on it. Usually in the US, the American heavy cream gets to firm picks a little bit quicker than Mexican heavy cream for some reason. So for you, it could be a little bit quicker.
Eliceo, while that's firming up, can you share some of the classes you plan on presenting later this month, or next month as well?
Yes, I am very excited. So I will be having sticky buns. Then I will be having a traditional conchas class. It's been a while since a conchas class. I'm going to have a chocolate eclair class, then sweet winter tamales, which is tamales season. Dia de la Candelaria is almost here. Also to celebrate Chinese New Year, I'm going to make Chinese steamed buns. Those are going to be nice. And I was also doing a lot of experimentation with gluten-free flours, and I'm going to teach my first gluten-free conchas class. I'm very excited to share that one.
So with the gluten-free, are you using like almond flour?
No, I'm using the I found this gluten-free flour from Bob's Red Mill.
Yeah.
That is also a great company because it's employee owned. So I usually like very much to use their products. And you just have to, like do a lot of recipe testing. And I was like, for a week, like, like a crazy scientist in the kitchen. And finally I found a very good recipe to share that I'm very happy to share because it recreates very nice the texture of conchas, because I like a very light crumb in my conchas.
So Eliceo, all the classes you just rolled off right now, those are actually in person or any online classes?
Oh, these ones that I just told you, those are going to be online classes for the next few weeks.
Okay. We have a friend Araceli's asking, actually, how much heavy cream did you put into the mixer?
Gracias, Araceli, because I completely forgot to mention that, and that is 1 cup or 250 grams. 1 cup or 250 grams of cold heavy cream.
And then our friend Lola is also asking about your eclairs class, if you'll be offering the eclairs class soon.
Yeah, that's gonna be in a couple of weeks. Oh yeah, because I taught one last year. That was a peanut butter and Jamaica eclairs. Those were really good also. And this year it's gonna be chocolate eclairs. I'm barely getting soft sheets now. It's gonna take a bit longer.
Okay. So how long has it taken you, like, for you send the gluten-free classes? How many times have you gone through the science classes to figure out what works and doesn't work? Because baking is all of the science.
Yeah, I was not experienced at all with gluten-free, so it took me a while and many bags of gluten-free flour. It's usually takes me, let's say, from the moment I think of a class and then to develop it, it's 2 to 3 days. But for this one, it was a good 2 weeks maybe, because I tend to, when I develop my recipes, I tend to do just like one little change. You cannot change many different things at once, because then you don't know what's working and what's not. So yeah, it's like today I tried this, I like this, I didn't like this. Then tomorrow I try it again, but just with one little change in the recipe, and then see if I like what changed and just develop from there. But it does take some time, but it's a lot of fun also.
With your experience in seeing the difference between regular flour, you have regular flour, then you have wheat flour, now there's gluten-free flour. What is the big difference in regards to ratio? Is it texture? I haven't tried baking gluten-free yet, but since you have, I ask.
It is definitely the texture. The thing with that is that gluten is a protein that is developed naturally in wheat flour. Wheat flour has 2 different proteins, and when you knead and add a liquid and then knead, these 2 proteins bond, and then they create a new protein called gluten. When that happens, gluten simply binds things together, and since you have yeast in there, this yeast is putting all the natural sugars that are in the flour, and then it gives us in exchange alcohol and carbon dioxide. So since you have the gluten, you have a nice stretchy dough, and these gases are trapped inside, and that's how you get that nice, like the texture that it's like the texture that we know of bread, right? That crumb. But apparently wheat is the only flour that develops gluten, at least like a high level of gluten. And other flours definitely don't do that. So it's a matter of trying to replicate that same texture, but with other flours that don't develop this stretchy dough. And it's a matter of trying to catch all those gases that are coming from the yeast. And it's tricky, it's definitely tricky.
No, it's definitely a science. We have Avelia Perez. She's just complimenting you on one of your class. She says, Eliceo used a Jamaica cream for his mil hojas class. It was the most delicious thing I've ever tasted.
Oh, nice. Hola, Avelia. Muchas gracias. That's one of my favorite cakes, actually, the hibiscus milfeya. We added some pears to the filling. It's like hibiscus cream, similar to a lemon curd. So it was a hibiscus lemon first, and then in the puff pastry, we made it also from scratch, and then we topped it with heavy cream, and that was a lot of fun. Okay, finally, our cream has cream picks. There we go.
Perfect.
And, I said before, it's usually a slower process with Mexican heavy cream. American heavy cream gets to stiff cakes really quickly. So make sure you keep an eye on it, because I don't want your heavy cream to go to butter. Okay, let me just take my crunchy texture out of the oven because it's ready. And there we go. I'm gonna take it directly to the freezer because I want it to cool down quickly. I just got rid of the pan. And I have a hibiscus English cream that I made earlier. So I can show you the rest of the process with the cream that is nice and cold. It has to be really, really cold when you make it. So let's say from the moment you make your English cream to the moment you incorporate your heavy cream, it should be at least for a few hours in the fridge. If it's room temperature or a little lukewarm, some of your heavy cream will deflate when we are trying to incorporate it. So I'm gonna take some of this heavy cream. I'm not going to use all of it. I'm going to use maybe half of it. There we go. Now, we worked really hard to incorporate all that air into the heavy cream. So if I just mixed this, however, we will lose all that nice air that we incorporated into this. So I'm going to be folding in my heavy cream to my Jamaica English cream. So I'm gonna start doing that now. Every time you see a recipe that calls for folding in your ingredients, this is the technique that you should use in order to prevent losing all that air that you incorporated. So let's imagine this is a clock, and I'm going to go from 12 to 6, and then from 6 to 12, touching the sides of my bowl. I'm gonna rotate a little bit, and then again from 12 to 6, touching the bottom of my bowl, and then from 6 to 12, touching the side of my bowl. rotate again, 12 to 6, 6 to 12. Rotate, 12 to 6, 6 to 12. And just keep doing that. It's going to be a bit easier as you go, because these two have different densities. And as you go, both densities become more similar, and then it's a bit easier to do this. And this is properly our hibiscus mousse. And you can see now how we have that nice pale violet pink color. When you do this, it's important that you are touching the bottom and the sides of the bowl at all times. Otherwise, you might have some of the English cream that has not been incorporated with the rest of the ingredients. Okay. Once all this has been incorporated, this would be your mousse ready to go.
It's beautiful. You can put that on anything.
Right, yes. I'm gonna show you two different ways to present this. I'm going to be using a piping bag. By the way, if you don't have a piping bag, you can, of course, just use a Ziploc bag. It works great. I'm going to bring the rest of my heavy cream as well. Okay. So whenever I use a piping bag, I usually use a tall container like this one. Then I put my piping bag in there. And this is just to free my hands. So I am able to transfer whatever I'm pouring into my piping bag. So I'm gonna put some of this mousse in there. There we go. And let me bring the camera a bit
Eliceo?
closer.
Eliceo, how many servings with this recipe can we serve?
Let me see. This is about six servings.
Thank you.
Okay. I usually like to use this like a tall cup for this. You can use also like a wine glass or something like that. Those are nice as well.
Maybe a martini
let's-
glass.
Oh, there you go. So here is my crunchy texture. It's not warm anymore. There you go. I'm just gonna put some of this in the bottom of my cup. Then I'm going to add some of that mousse. This is a great dessert for like a dinner party. Something like that would be great.
Can you pre-make those ahead of time and keep them in the fridge till you're ready to serve?
Yes, you can make the let's say you can make the crunchy texture and also the English cream maybe like one day before. The streusel can be stored in a closed container in the fridge. And then when you're gonna serve it, just take your heavy cream to stiff peaks, and that's it. Oh. Okay. We lost the phone.
So you get stuck in the.
Yeah. There we go. Okay. So I have my crunchy texture. Then I have my mousse. I'm gonna take some heavy cream now. I'm just simply going to spoon that on top of my mousse. I'm going to be adding a little extra of that streusel for more texture. And then also, do you remember that those hibiscus petals that we used earlier? What I did is that I just added a little extra sugar. Let me tell you how much I used. I used 50 grams or a quarter cup sugar. And then just added a little extra water to make sure those are covered. And then cook those until the syrup has thickened. And then you will have something like this. You have that nice thick syrup. And then you have this that are sweet. And they will have just a little hint of acidity. They will not be as acidic as they were before because they've been cooked twice now. So I'm gonna take some of that to top my dessert. Something like that. And then we can also use some of that, of this hibiscus sauce. And just do a little bit on top. And let me see if I can give you a better view from the side. So you have the streusel, the mousse, the heavy cream, and then you have the hibiscus petals and the hibiscus syrup.
That looks amazing. We have our friend here, Holly Lynn Pursa, says, can't wait to try this. I love all things Jamaica. And I'm also kind of curious about that Jamaica syrup, because I don't like to waste things in the kitchen. So any other, besides this delicious syrup that you just created there for us, what can we do with that Jamaica syrup?
Oh, you can do a lot of different things. So this is, let's say, like your base. Let's say just like when you're making agua de Jamaica. So it's a very similar thing. I usually use it just as decoration. Let's say if you want to serve this on a plate, let's say you want to do some like fine plating. Let me show you. So let's say we can do, I'm going to be using a small ice cream scoop, this one. You can also present it this way. Then you can also do some heavy cream. You could even pipe your heavy cream. Then again, some streusel.
Who's your little guy there? Is it it's a squirrel? Is it a cat?
I think it's a It's an otter.
It's a, that's so sweet.
It's a lady otter.
Okay. Ana Vasquez says to use it also on top of ice cream. That'd be good too.
Definitely, yes. Like on top of vanilla ice cream.
I was
That would
thinking on
be
top of,
really good.
I was thinking on top of goat cheese.
Oh, there you go, yes. Or like a brie cheese
Okay.
would be
Mhm.
really good with this. So if you want to do like a different plating, you can also do it just like that.
That looks so delicious. And I have Jamaica here, so I can't wait to try some here, maybe over the weekend. And instead of something savory, do something sweet with Jamaica. What a different way to use it. But thank you for sharing. But before we go away, I do need you to hold the plate. And so
Of
mi
course.
compañero Abelardo puede tomar la foto. A ver qué se hizo. Hang on a second, let me find him. Let's see.
Here I am.
There he is.
Uno, dos, sí. Let's see. Let me get this. A little out of practice. We had the vacación. And here we go. Uno, dos, sí. All right, perfect. Thank you.
Perfect.
Bueno, Eliceo, en todo caso, muchas gracias. Please tell our folks that are watching us how they can find you. If they're in Mexico City, online, in person, please share your information with them, please.
Sí, muchas gracias. You can find me, I usually post my classes on Instagram. My Instagram is Eliceo Lara with a C and everything together. And my website is mexicanbaking.com. And I am now hosting online classes every weekend or every other weekend, and some in-person classes as well. You can get in touch with me for those. Muchísimas gracias, Jimena. Muchísimas gracias, Abelardo. And I don't know if anyone has any other questions.
Mandándote las gracias. Everybody says thank you.
Oh, perfect. Awesome. Thank you very much. Whenever you get to make it, everyone, please do send pictures. I love seeing your pictures of your final product.
Yeah. And we'll be seeing Abelardo again later this year on April 25. So let's see what surprises he'll bring with us later in April. En todo caso, yes, right? En todo caso, muchísimas gracias. Thank you for sharing your knowledge and tips. Every time I see you, I learn something new. And I hope the folks who are watching us as well. With that said, éxitos y adelante, año nuevo. Y le paso ahora a mi compañero Abelardo porque nos despide.
Okay, bye-bye. Muchas gracias. Gracias a todos. Thank you very much, Jimena and Eliceo. I'm sorry it's getting a little wonky here because I'm out of practice, so I forgot what push. And all of you out there, thank you for your patience and for your tips on spotlighting and all that. But let me see if I could even put the spotlight on myself for a little while so people could see what I look like. Here goes. Okay, there you go. All right, so thank you so much to everybody that joined us today on En Casa con La Plaza. This was a great one. As you know, we record them, and this will be posted on our YouTube site at La Plaza LA, on our Facebook site at La Plaza LA, and also it'll remain on our our website, lapca.org. We're starting a new page. We already have all our 220 videos on one page, the 221, and now this is 2022. We're really looking forward to this year. And just to let you know what's going on for the rest of the week anyway, we're scheduling them as we speak. Let me see the ones that we have. Okay, coming up on Wednesday, of course, as we all know, the great Chente, Vicente Fernandez, passed away last month. So we're going to have a panel of an incredible panel with Gustavo Ariano, columnist for the LA Times, with Agustin Gursa, a blogger and a writer at UCLA, their Frontera collection, and Marisela Martinez from
Lindas Mexicanas.
Mariachi Lindas Mexicanas, a big Chente fan herself. So tune in on Wednesday at 7 o'clock. And then finally this Friday, ending this first week of En Casa sessions, is the return of Dan Guerrero Happy Hour with none other than Danny Trejo. Yes, Danny Trejo will be joining us on Happy Hour at 7 o'clock on Friday. So with that, thank you so much again. Thanks to our sponsors, Aetna, CVS, Kaiser Permanente, Union Pacific Foundation, the National Endowment for the Humanities, Institute of Museum and Library Sciences, and all the rest. And thank you all for having joined us today. So hasta la próxima, nos vemos. Bye-bye.